It's the Everest of ocean racing, the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia's Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. A 628 nautical mile journey starting from spectacular Sydney Harbour and finishing at Constitution Dock Hobart is one of the most famous in the world. And in 2019, the Sydney Hobart Yacht Race celebrates its 75th anniversary. Starting from humble beginnings in 1945, the event has transformed into an iconic international sporting sensation, regarded as one of the world's greatest tests and a true bucket list adventure. There's nothing quite like the Rolex Sydney Hobart. You're in for a treat today as we take you to the finish line in Hobart for the Line Honours finale. Hello and welcome to beautiful Hobart, stunning destination for the Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race, and this the 75th edition. Well, the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, in partnership with Tourism Tasmania, is thrilled to bring you this telecast of the closing stages, the Line Honours Battle. And joining me in commentary is ace match racing skipper, Olympic silver medalist Olivia Price, and also Rupert Guinness, award-winning journalist and author. Well, it's been described as a tango on water with these super maxis since they left Sydney Harbour, Olivia. Fair comment?
Oh, definitely, Gordon. You could definitely say that. Firstly, we saw InfoTrack lead out of Sydney Harbour, so they took the first honours of the race. Then we saw Comanche take the lead by quite a fair bit, a couple of miles. They got up to speeds of 29 knots down that first evening. And then since then, we've seen so many changes and transitions that really it is down to anyone.
Rupi, you've covered sport all over the world, including 31 Tour de France's. You've sailed the race twice. What makes it so special?
Well, Gordon, it's the people. It very much is the people's race. You know, we see every year at the start in Sydney Harbour the thousands who line the harbour, and every year we come back here to another finish of the Rolex Sydney Hobart, and there's thousands here at Constitution Dock. And you don't just see the people, you feel the emotion between the crews and their families and their friends and the fans, not just of sailing, but fans of sport. It's really a community event.
Okay, let's now sit back then and enjoy the action, the closing stages, the Line Honours battle in the Rolex Sydney Hobart.
Hello and welcome to the Line Honours finish of the Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. With me is award-winning journalist Rupert Guinness on the River Derwent for the historic 75th Sydney Hobart, run by the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. As Gordon mentioned, my name is Olivia Price, and wow, what a race this has been. Comanche has just rounded the iron pot and we are right next to her. We've had some fantastic battles here in the last 36 hours. What a race this has been.
Yeah, Olivia, it's one of the beautiful sights of sport when you see the lead yacht in any Rolex Sydney Hobart race come up the Derwent River, just like we're seeing Comanche now. She's had a beautiful race. She's sailing superbly now. And you can just imagine what the mood on the boat right now is amongst the crew. Although saying that, they have to remain attentive. There's still several miles to go before the finish line, but this is one of the great sights you'll see, and very soon we'll start to see the spectator fleet increase as the miles go by.
InfoTrack is currently sitting in second, closely followed by Blackjack and Wild Oats, who rounded Tasman Island together. And then just behind them is SHK Scallywag. There's about 8 knots of wind at the moment, but we're doing about 14 knots of boat speed, Rupert.
Yeah, that's great, Olivia. I think we all know how the Derwent River can play for you or against you in this sort of race, and I think we're very fortunate to see some nice wind this morning. We're going to see some beautiful sailing to see this race for Line Honours reach to its end. We've had a great race, as you're saying earlier, Olivia. There was a lot of talk about it being like a tango just 24 hours ago, and it very much was as the lead changed several times. But at the end of the day, Comanche's come out on top, and we can just see her showing us what she does so well. And we saw Comanche go much further out to sea very earlier on, and obviously she came through very strongly yesterday afternoon. The crew on board's very busy though, which I was saying before, they have to remain vigilant, they have to remain attentive. They can't start thinking of the celebrations just yet. But this is a brilliant sight. And I think Comanche's a beautiful boat. I mean, a lot has been spoken about her since she first came to Australia, and for Jim Cooney and Samantha Grant, I'm sure it's a great vindication for their commitment and the investment, not just in dollars, but also the investment of resources and man and people power into this campaign. It's been a fabulous effort by them and their crew. Look at this beautiful sight here of Comanche. I mean, she's just going through the water beautifully there. I think this is the Derwent is absolutely looking superb as well, isn't it? You know, it's a beautiful river.
I just love it here, Rupert. It is one of my favourite places in the world.
Certainly is. I mean, every year you come back here for this race, the Rolex Sydney Hobart, but the aura or the feel of Hobart, and particularly the Derwent River, seems to change every year. But it's a fantastic, beautiful place, and I think it's, you know, the history of Tasmania is fantastic as well.
Make sure that you're staying up to date with the following yachts. In second place, we have Infotrack. In third place is a tight battle for third and fourth between Blackjack and Wild Oats 11. And then in fifth place, we currently have SHK Scallywag. Now, Rupert, what we've been talking about yesterday was how tough this battle has been and how far back Wild Oats got earlier in the day yesterday in that light transitional period.
Yeah, certainly Wild Oats was caught in a hole there, and for a boat of her stature as a 9 times winner that was chasing a record 10th win, she certainly came into this campaign. It was certainly a troubled campaign at the start. In the Cabbage Tree Island race, she had sustained a lot of damage to her to the deck and the mast. Did a miraculous job in getting her ready for the race, but I guess there was always going to be question marks as to how ready she really would be. But of course, she did fall into a hole there and dropped back as far as 11th place, 30 miles behind off the lead. But she did very well yesterday to fight her way back into what you could say contention up until late yesterday afternoon. Obviously, that win's not going to be hers today, and that will be a different sort of taste on the lips for skipper Mark Richards. I think Christian Beck's Infotrack, they had a great race. You know, he was very confident when they left the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia just before the start. They've done very well to sort of show that they are a yacht to contend with.
Yeah. Now on board we have some amazing sailors on board Comanche. So obviously we have Jim Cooney and Samantha Grant, who are the owners of Comanche. We have Louis Sinclair and Silas Nolan on the bow, Sven Runo as well, Andrew Henderson, Julian Crescent, and Mark Bartlett, Ryan Godfrey, Edward Hackney, so Ted Hackney, Kyle Langford and Tom Johnson. And as well we have James Cooney, Pablo Arate, Stu Benetine, Johnny Hildebrand, Mitch Booth, Michael Sanderson and Stan Honey as navigator. So this crew is made up of extremely established sailors, and that's not taking away from any of the other sailors during this race who are sailing the historic 75th Sydney Hobart, but they are working well as a team.
Yeah, they certainly are, Olivia, and it's actually, as you said, it's not taking anything away from the other crews either. In this Rolex Sydney to Hobart, we've had 5 of the world's best super maxis, and to run those boats, you've got to have super crews for each one of them. So it's quite remarkable the depth of sailing talent that we've got here in this Rolex Sydney Hobart, and then notwithstanding the calibre of crews that are in the fleet behind us. This fleet of 157 at the start.
And yeah, the battle for overall is still yet to come.
Exactly. I mean, anything could happen, and I think in the next 24 hours we're going to see the leaderboard for the overall winner. It's going to be a very interesting board to watch, I think, because the conditions can change. There's a lot of boats who are very close to each other behind us, and while the leader this morning on overall was Dragay, certainly that race is far from over, and I think we're going to see some exciting racing, and there'll be a lot more tales to be told within the next 24 hours, Olivia. Yes. It's been a massive campaign by Comanche and Jim Cooney and Samantha Grant and the crew. I think when you spoke about the calibre of the crew, tell us a little bit more about what other races that does this crew do, and you talk about the experience that brings into a campaign like this.
Yeah, so on board the crew there's multiple line honours winners of a Rolex Sydney Hobart. There are Sail GP Australian team members as well as Sail GP USA team members. So Sail GP is another World Series of foiling boats, so very, very different to these 100-foot Super Maxis and the offshore sailing that we have going on. We have Stan Honey Navigator, so this really was a tactical and navigators race. So Mitch Booth and Michael Sanderson and Stan Honey, the strategists, tactician and navigator would have been up all day, all night throughout this race, trying to get every inch of an advantage against those other 100-foot Supermaxis. We heard from Bradshaw Kellett on InfoTrack during the one of the navigators' press conferences, saying that he was definitely not going to get any sleep. He will be watching everyone like a hawk, and you can tell that it's actually paid off with InfoTrack sitting back in second. Very, very well done. I wouldn't have thought it was going to be a big bottomed race, so I would have thought that the lighter conditions expected would mean that it would be a lighter, slower race, so therefore the pencil-style boats of Blackjack and Wild Oats 11 would be coming up the River Derwent first. However, that's not to be, Rupert. These guys have sailed very, very well.
You're watching the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia's Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. The 2019 Rolex Sydney Hobart is the historic 75th staging of the 628 Nautical Mile Classic, a celebrated journey that starts on stunning Sydney Harbour, works its way down the New South Wales coast and passes formidable Bass Strait, then along the rugged Tasmanian east coast, through Storm Bay and finishing in the always challenging Derwent. There's no race quite like the Rolex Sydney Hobart. For more on the great race, visit RolexSydneyHobart.com.
We are on the River Derwent for the line honours finish of the 2019 Rolex Sydney Hobart. Comanche is now hoisting a bigger reaching sail, I believe. We'll see it very, very soon. You can see the crew work on the deck. With me is Rupert Guinness, and we are bringing you the live broadcast of the Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race, proudly brought to you by the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia and Tourism Tasmania. Everything's happening here, Rupert, on the River Derwent.
Yeah, Olivia, this is a fantastic sight. This is one of the great moments of world sailing every year, the Rolex Sydney Hobart, as it reaches its grand finale for the line honours victory. But it's also, from Australian sports, it's one of the great moments as well. This is a festive season in the summer of Australia, and the Rolex Sydney Hobart is an institution to everything summer in Australia, and here we are on the Derwent watching this race unfold.
A beautiful sunrise line honours finish here in Hobart, watching Comanche unfurl their reaching sail off the bowsprit. This is going to create a little bit more sail area and during this lighter transition. So as we started our broadcast, as they rounded the iron pot, we had maybe 12 to 13 knots. Right now we're in 8 knots, so they're really trying to hold as much power as possible. Have a look at that. It is huge.
It's massive. I mean, we're just next to Comanche. You feel like you're next to a skyscraper, but it's a beautiful sight. And as you can see, she's getting some impact from that sail already. She's just looks like she's just started to pick up some momentum there. Certainly I can feel it as we've accelerated. So there she is, sailing towards her second line honours win.
There's not long to go.
No, there certainly isn't. As you said, we got out here early this morning. It was actually dark on the Derwent, but we managed to get down to the iron pot to start our live coverage, and the sight of Comanche coming around the iron pot, the silhouette virtually as she came around the iron pot, that was a beautiful scene to see. But this is beautiful as well. Look at her. You can see the finish line is right in front of her. Obviously some miles to go, but as every minute passes, that anticipation and excitement must be building amongst the crew. Yet again, they've got to harness their enthusiasm and excitement too. Certainly, I think, earlier we were talking about the 4 other Super Maxis that are racing here. I mean, we've had 5 of the world's best Super Maxis racing here all at once. I think Matt Allen, the owner of Ichiban, the TP52, he was saying how great it is that this Rolex Sydney Hobart has those 5 Super Maxis here. And he did make a point at the start at the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia saying, we may never see 5 Super Maxis like this together racing against each other again. And if we don't, we're very privileged to have seen it this year, and we've been very privileged to have seen a great race between the 5 of them. It will be very interesting to hear what Mark Richards has to say about what went wrong and right in their race, and what is the future for Wild Oats 11 that underwent a lot of work just before the race to be race ready after she sustained damage on the Cabbage Tree Island race.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it was it was insane, and a massive team effort of how well the Wild Oats team came together. Their rigging went to Spain in order to get fixed. They had McConaughey boat builders helping them up in northern New South Wales. We had a separate part of the rig rebuilt from New Zealand. It was a global effort, and we did talk about this a little bit, and that the reason for that is because it was so close to the start of the Rolex Sydney Hobart. It was in November, and it was a 4-week effort to get it back on the water. There was structural damage to the hull, the rig, the rigging itself, the sails. It was a real effort to get them back on the line. Yeah. She was out further east in the more breeze when that new easterly breeze hit offshore, and they just were able to romp on home.
You know, Olivia, what I'd like to see, I would love to see all 5 Super Maxis come back next year. Now they've all had a taste of the lead. Obviously Wild Oats didn't, but they've had a taste of wins before. You've got Comanche here, onwards to her second win, sailing beautifully, and then you've had the other Super Maxis have all had a taste of the lead. They all know they can be up there. They all know that they can have their say in this race. So surely they must want to come back and have another crack at this.
We are keeping you up to date on the line honours finish. There is not long to go. Looking back at second place, we've got 13 nautical miles. Behind Comanche is Infotrack, and then followed closely by Blackjack and Wild Oats 11, and then Scallywag, SHK Scallywag in 5th.
Look, this is just beautiful watching her Comanche here. I mean, as you said, you know, the variable winds, but she's certainly making the best of the wind that we've got. I mean, it's a credit to the crew. It's a credit to Jim Cooney and Samantha Grant that they're able to maximise the speed that they can get out of the conditions here. I think that's been the trademark of their race from the start, making the best of every opportunity.
Yeah, so we're just seeing a little bit of fluttering of that big furling sail that Comanche put up just a few moments ago, and then a bit of a flatten of the boat as well. So we are coming in behind one of those hills. We've got Ted Hackney at the back tightening that leech line. So that's going to be trying to hold on to as much of the wind in the sail as possible.
Gosh, it's remarkable, isn't it? I mean, we were flying along there, and suddenly it's almost like we've just crossed the line, but we haven't, of course, have we, Olivia?
So, as we've just seen, and we spoke about, we have gone into a bit of a mill pond here on the River Derwent, and I'm looking around, and I can't see much breeze at all.
We're seeing the Derwent at her best.
Absolutely at
or
her
worse,
best.
however you feel.
Well, exactly.
She's virtually parked here, isn't she, at the moment?
Well, yeah, we are not going anywhere.
We are not going anywhere.
It really just speaks to the race that we've had so far, the fantastic 2019 Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. It's been like this out in the Bass Strait. It's been 40 knots in the Bass Strait. It really is a race for a tactical race, for navigators, for strategists, for teamwork.
Well, it seems like we're sort of getting some movement again now. We're just starting to get some momentum and pick up speed, and obviously not like she was before, but she's at least moving. So Olivia, over the next 12 hours or 24 hours even, the Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race is going to still unravel in the race for the overall victory, the Tattersall Cup. A beautiful cup it is too.
And now they've gone into 0 knots of wind, so therefore the sail has started to collapse. Infotrack was the first out of the heads,
Comanche
weren't they?
started slow and now she's finishing slow, but at least in the right position.
Yes, I think they'd much rather be here than winning out of Sydney Heads, although Infotrack did a fantastic job after the tight tussle with the other 4 Super Maxis out of the heads.
Will it come into the back of their minds a little concern about the other Super Maxis coming up?
Definitely. So I'm just looking behind me, a touch back to where the iron pot is, and I'm seeing a yacht. I'm seeing Infotrack. So Infotrack can see Comanche, and Comanche can see Infotrack. Now, if that doesn't start putting some nerves into your mind, I don't know what does. Yeah. Anything can really happen, and we talk about that a lot throughout the Rolex Sydney Hobart, that Just because you get to the iron pot first does not mean that you will win the line honours title. You're just seeing off the bow of Comanche here a nice little increase in pressure. I'd say it's about 4 or 5 knots, but that will do a lot to Comanche's overall boat speed. You can see the boat just starting to load up, easing the sails, turning the bow up just a little, and with that turn up, they're going to be able to start seeing the finish line, Rupert.
There you go. That's you can just in a couple of seconds you can just see her pick up some speed, can't you?
Yeah, the acceleration of these boats in such minimal breeze is just amazing. Comanche can see the finish line. They can see the finish line at Constitution Dock. There'll be a couple of smiles on their face, I think, with this extra pressure.
The relief for Comanche's crew is obviously frustration shared behind us, just as as they probably now get to extend their lead back out again.
Yes, as we mentioned before, we can see InfoTrack behind us. They were 7 nautical miles behind Comanche in the last few minutes. I think Comanche will be happy with this extra pressure. We were talking about whether they were looking back at InfoTrack or looking back to look for wind. I'd say it was probably a bit of both. Thanks to Tourism Tasmania for bringing us, for helping bring us this broadcast. And look at the spectator fleet. We're all staying back behind Comanche. We do not want to affect her in any way, but there is smooth sailing ahead for the line honours leader.
This is a majestic sight to see, and it's fitting that Comanche's got some speed up in these final miles, just to see her cutting through the water there.
And with only 6 nautical miles now between Comanche and InfoTrack, anything could happen. 6 nautical miles is not very far at all. The Iron Pot is only about 13 nautical miles away from the finish line at Constitution Dock. So that's only half the distance of the River Derwent. So anything could happen on the River Derwent. You have to expect the unexpected. And see, the crew keeping their calm, but we're all getting excited. It really is an iconic race, an iconic finish line, and a beautiful part of history, Rupert. The 75th running of the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia's Sydney to Hobart Yacht Race.
And look at this now. The sun's just coming out at the right moment. It's like it's a winner's sunshine, isn't it, really, in many ways? And you don't get many more beautiful sights than that. Comanche just sailing towards her probable victory, line honours victory in the Rolex Sydney to Hobart.
A couple of conversations on board Comanche, people moving up to windward as the new line of pressure just increases. All in unison, Rupert. They're very, very in tune with each other. I think, sailing nearly 40 hours together is probably helping them, as well as their previous year's experience. They're all very established sailors in their own right, and Comanche as a team has sailed a brilliant race here in the Rolex Sydney Hobart.
It's been a brilliant race, and it's still not all over yet. We've got Comanche in her last strides.
Here we go.
And then the rest of the fleet behind us.
Furling their sail up so that it can get around the forestay, and they will deploy very, very shortly.
And just above us, the helicopters are really, coming kind of low, making a lot of noise, but so is the spectator fleet. It's all getting a little bit lumpy around Comanche at the moment, but she's just about there now, Olivia, isn't she?
Yes, I think, Rupert, we can safely say that Comanche is making her way to the finish line, and we'll only have one short tap to go after this. I'm looking at the shoreline all along Battery Point, Constitution Dock at the Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. What a scene.
This is Comanche's year for Jim Cooney and Samantha Grant and the crew. Congratulations. Well, they're not there yet.
No, Rupert, we've been saying for a couple of minutes now that we are on the final stretch in the line honours finish of the Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. Comanche is on lay to the finish line. which means that they have a direct straight sailing line to the finish in order to cross it. Now, they will have to do a manoeuvre, they will have to tack as they go across it, but my gosh, I'm seeing some smiles on board. About 100 metres to go to the finish of the 2019 Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. The spectators are everywhere. The Constitution dock is lined with spectators. We've got Comanche crew sitting on the side, soaking up the atmosphere. The race has been grueling, it's been testing, and they've made their way up the River Derwent in probably some very, very tricky conditions that we've seen, but they're going to be very relieved to cross the finish line, and the celebrations will be immense early this morning and into the afternoon. We're counting down into the line honours finish of the 2019 Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. Moments away from crossing the line, and we are bringing this to you live from the River Derwent and Constitution Dock. Rupert, this has been fantastic, and we are just watching history unfold.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Olivia, absolute pleasure. And here we see seconds.
Here we go. And congratulations, Comanche, the 2019 Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race winners, the 75th edition of the race, owned by Jim Cooney and Samantha Grant. You can see the celebrations on board. The crew are so happy. They've made it, Rupert. They've made it to the finish line first.
It's been simply fantastic, and how they all just contained themselves for those last couple of 100 metres, and then obviously the explosion of joy on board there, just as the winner's siren went off. And now the day is theirs. The sun shines out, the blue skies are here. It's only barely 8 or 7:30 in the morning. What a day of celebration they've got ahead of them.
The 2019 Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race Line Honours winners. And congratulations to Jim Cooney and Samantha Grant's Comanche, Line Honours victors in the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia's historic 2019 Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. An incredible effort, and what a performance.
Well, I think it was a long night. Everybody's pretty tired, and we treated the race as a sprint. We didn't take too many breaks. Guys had a little rest here and there, but mostly we wanted crew on deck all of the time. We had a lot of manoeuvres, a lot of sail changes, and a lot of just keeping on our toes.
Up the Derwent this morning, almost a straight line until you're within sight of the finish line, and you decided to have a bit of a break, a cup of tea.
That was traumatic. That's 30 minutes of my life that I'll never get back. It was really, really, very stressful.
And co-owner and skipper Jim Cooney. Tasmania salutes you, Australia salutes you, the world salutes you for the 75th Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. 3 cheers for Jim and Samantha and Comanche. Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! The Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race is proudly run by the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia alongside its finishing partners at the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania. The Cruising Yacht Club of Australia and the Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race thanks Rolex for its long-term partnership of the race, starting way back in 2002. Support is also greatly appreciated by the CYCA's other race partners, including the Tasmanian Government, Tourism Tasmania, Events Tasmania, Audi Centre Sydney, Winning Appliances, Tasports, Janus at Sea, Grinders Coffee, and the New South Wales Government's Roads and Maritime Services. To the 1,800 strong crew, supporters, family, friends and fans who followed the race, a big thank you for your support. Thanks for watching the 2019 Rolex Sydney Hobart, the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia's historic 75th Sydney Hobart Yacht Race.